It was a cool evening in Lagos, Nigeria, when my life changed forever. My name is Amara. I was just 16, sitting at the dinner table with my family. As my younger brother cracked jokes, I couldn't help but notice how tightly I was holding onto my secret. My heart raced, and before I knew it, I had blurted out, "I think I like both boys and girls." The room fell silent. My mother's spoon clattered to her plate. My father's eyes narrowed, and my brother froze mid-laugh. The air felt heavy with disbelief and judgment. That night marked the beginning of my journey as a bisexual in Nigeria. My parents didn't understand, and my brother avoided me for weeks. But amidst the turmoil, I felt an odd sense of relief, like a weight had lifted. Even though their reactions hurt, admitting my truth felt like the first step toward freedom. I didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning of navigating my identity in a society that wasn't ready for people like me. Nigeria is a country with rich culture and deep traditions, but it can be stifling for those who don't fit societal norms. Same-sex relationships are criminalized, and conversations about sexuality often carry a heavy stigma. For someone like me, the fear of judgment or worse, violence, was always present. Growing up, I learned early that being different was dangerous. I heard the whispers about people who lived wrong and saw how quickly they were cast out. Schools taught us that anything outside heterosexuality was a sin, and churches preached fire and brimstone for those who dared defy God's will. It was in this environment that I found myself, a young person drawn to both boys and girls, trying to understand why my feelings felt so wrong yet so right. After my revelation, my relationship with my family became strained. My mother insisted I was confused and started dragging me to prayer meetings. My father barely spoke to me, and when he did, his words were sharp and cutting. "You're embarrassing this family," he said one day, his voice cold. Still, I held on to the hope that they would one day understand. I began to hide my feelings again, pretending I was healed to keep the peace. But every time I smiled through their lectures or laughed at their jokes about those people, a part of me felt like it was breaking. I didn't want to lose my family, but I couldn't lose myself either. Living as a bisexual person in Nigeria meant leading a double life. In public, I played the role society expected of me, a straight, God-fearing young adult. But in private, I sought spaces where I could be myself. I found online forums where others like me shared their experiences, and for the first time, I felt less alone. Meeting people who understood was like finding water in a desert. We would talk about our fears and hopes, dreaming of a day when we could live openly. But even in these safe spaces, caution was paramount. Trusting the wrong person could mean exposure, shame, or even arrest. I'll never forget the first time I fell in love with a girl. Her name was Ada, and she had the kind of smile that could light up a room. We met at a friend's birthday party and clicked instantly. But in Nigeria, loving someone of the same sex isn't just frowned upon, it's illegal. We kept our relationship a secret, meeting in secluded places and communicating through coded messages. It was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Every stolen kiss and whispered word felt like defiance, but the constant fear of being caught cast a shadow over our happiness. Societal pressure in Nigeria is immense. By the time I was in my mid-20s, relatives constantly asked when I would settle down and marry. "You're not getting any younger," they'd say with knowing smiles. Marriage wasn't just a milestone. It was a duty. The idea of marrying someone I didn't love haunted me. But how could I explain that my love didn't fit their mold? My bisexuality was a secret I carried everywhere, and their expectations felt like chains pulling me further away from myself. Religion is a cornerstone of Nigerian society, and the church played a big role in my upbringing. But the sermons on sin and damnation often felt like personal attacks. Each Sunday, I sat through fiery speeches condemning people like me, feeling smaller with every word. One day, a pastor singled me out, saying, "Young people must resist the devil's temptations." Though he didn't know my truth, his words cut deep. The church, once a place of comfort, had become a battlefield where I fought to hold on to my faith and identity. Not everyone can be trusted, and I learned this lesson the hard way. I confided in a close friend, hoping to find support. At first, she was kind and understanding, but it didn't last. Soon, rumors began to spread about my sexuality. The whispers turned into stares, and before long, I became the subject of gossip. People avoided me, and some even hurled insults. It was a painful reminder that not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests at heart. The turning point came when a neighbor confronted me in public. "I heard about you," she spat, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "People like you don't belong here." My heart pounded as I walked away, trying to block out the laughter and whispers. That night I cried until I couldn't breathe. I realized I couldn't keep living like this, hiding, pretending, and constantly fearing exposure. Something had to change, even if it meant risking everything. Change came in the form of a support group. A friend introduced me to a discreet organization for LGBTQ plus Nigerians. For the first time, I sat in a room full of people who understood my struggles. Hearing their stories gave me hope. Some had faced worse challenges than mine, but still found ways to thrive. They taught me that I wasn't alone, and that my identity wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was something to embrace. In the safety of the support group, I reconnected with Ada, the girl I had loved and lost. She had disappeared from my life years ago, fearing the consequences of being found out. But there she was, braver and more radiant than ever. We rekindled our friendship slowly, sharing stories of what we had endured since we last met. As our bond deepened, so did our feelings. This time, however, we approached our relationship with a sense of cautious hope. With the support of the group, we felt less alone in our fight to love freely. Even as I found strength in others, the battle within me raged on. Years of societal and familial rejection had planted seeds of doubt in my mind. Was I really worthy of love? Could I ever live authentically in such a hostile environment? Through therapy sessions offered by the group, I began to untangle these feelings. I learned that self-acceptance wasn't a destination, but a journey. Slowly, I started to see my bisexuality not as a curse, but as a part of my identity, a beautiful, complex piece of who I was. One day I decided it was time to confront my parents. I had spent years hiding from their judgment, but I could no longer live in fear. I sat them down and told them about the support group, the people I'd met, and the struggles I had faced. My father remained silent, his face unreadable. My mother wept, asking where she had gone wrong. It wasn't the reconciliation I had hoped for, but it was a step forward. For the first time, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own family. Not everyone accepted my truth, and some never would, but I began standing up for myself in ways I hadn't before. When a coworker made a derogatory comment about LGBTQ plus people, I calmly told him his words were hurtful. The courage it took to speak out was immense, but it felt empowering. For years, I had let others define me with their words and actions. Now, I was reclaiming my narrative, one conversation at a time. Life wasn't always easy, but I found moments of joy that made the struggles worthwhile. Ada and I would sneak away to the beach, laughing as the waves lapped at our feet. I joined a group of queer creatives, where we celebrated our identities through art and storytelling. These moments reminded me that happiness wasn't a faraway dream. It was something I could create, even in the face of adversity. Along the way, I discovered the importance of allies. A colleague who overheard my story became one of my fiercest supporters. She educated herself about LGBTQ plus issues and even spoke up for me during workplace discussions. Her kindness gave me hope that change was possible, even in a society as rigid as Nigeria's. Allies like her reminded me that while the fight for acceptance was far from over, it wasn't one I had to face alone. The LGBTQ plus community in Nigeria is resilient, and I saw this firsthand as we organized events to raise awareness. From secret pride gatherings to online campaigns, we found ways to celebrate our identities while staying safe. Every small victory, every story shared, every mind changed, felt like a step toward a brighter future. Together, we were breaking down barriers, proving that love and authenticity could thrive even in the harshest conditions. The climax of my journey came during a public advocacy campaign. I had been asked to anonymously contribute my story to a documentary about LGBTQ plus experiences in Nigeria. Sharing my truth on such a large platform was terrifying, but I knew it was important. When the documentary was released, the response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people who felt seen for the first time. The backlash was fierce, but it was outweighed by the knowledge that my story had made a difference. In the aftermath of the documentary, I felt a peace I had never known. The fear of being discovered still lingered, but it no longer controlled me. I had built a life rooted in authenticity, surrounded by people who loved and accepted me for who I was. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face it. My bisexuality was no longer a secret or a burden. It was a source of strength. Looking back on my journey, I realize how far I've come. I've learned that being true to yourself is the greatest act of courage, and that love, no matter its form, deserves to be celebrated. To anyone watching this, who feels trapped between two worlds, know that you are not alone. Share your story, find your community, and never stop fighting for the life you deserve. Together, we can create a world where everyone is free to live and love authentically. If this story resonated with you, please share your own experiences in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going and build a community of understanding and acceptance.